I was just reading the synopsis of the summit, and Mr. Ramesh gave me a little flavor of the discussions, the vast span of stakeholders who were called to participate in the deliberations, the various subjects that you have picked up, including risk mitigation, also the fact that you had international agencies participating in this debate, in this discussion, encourages me to start looking at your targets or the infrastructure project exporter targets also afresh. And I would like to place on record my deep appreciation towards Exim Bank for getting all of us in this room together and giving us an opportunity to deliberate our future, the Indian business future in this, if you ask me, very nascent sector, but one full of potential, one which has immense scope in the years to come. The outset, my apologies, I got terribly late, but today has been a very, very tough day in the office. We have so many negotiations going on simultaneously for free trade agreements, and we are in the midst of G20 preparations as we speak, so a large part of my day went between UK negotiations and G20 discussions on our presidency next year. And we have the Italian minister in India, the trade minister, with whom we have extensive discussions tomorrow. And I must share with you, he's come into India, this is his first visit overseas for a bilateral post-COVID. It's almost after 2 years. His first visit overseas, he chooses India, as have many ministers or many heads of government in the last few months. More importantly, along with him, he has a very high-powered business delegation that is coming in. So nothing less than CEOs of large companies who are accompanying him, which shows the tremendous interest that has been generated about the India story. So I think it's a great recognition of the hard work that all of you are putting in, other agencies involved in the export effort are putting in. And certainly are indicative of a very bright future in the years to come. Of course, I must congratulate you for the wonderful performance last year. The year ended March 22. We've crossed $675 billion collectively between goods and services. The 400 billion, we've crossed 420 billion. The $225 billion of services export that we were hoping to get, which I then increased to 240 in the course of the year, looking at the good performance, actually landed up with closing at $254 billion of services exports. And mind you, this is without travel of any significance, without hospitality, almost no international revenues on hospitality, and very little, in the overall context of tourism, very little revenues coming to India. 675 billion encourages us to look bolder in the current year, but of course there are a lot of serious disruptions across the world, what with shipping lines and container shortages being a serious issue. Shipping rates are 10x of what they used to be. Global inflation has caused raw material to become much more expensive, not only in India but worldwide. There are headwinds around the Omicron wave still surfacing and lockdowns in different parts of the world. There are serious concerns around overall supply chain disruptions, because any one place goes into a lockdown, we don't know where the ramifications will lead to. And of course, the Ukraine-Russia conflict cannot be ignored. And it is at a very critical juncture with a lot of confusion and a lot of complications in our international trade at the moment. Despite all of that, I'm happy to share with you the April goods export figure. It's 38 billion. highest ever an April has ever seen. It's the second highest in a month we've ever done. The highest we've done is in March 22, which was about 42, 43 billion, I think, and 38 billion in a April month. And we all know, all of us who are in business, all of us who are engaged in the export or for that matter, any economic activity, know that April is usually a subdued month after the March growth or the effort we put in. We saw that effort giving us very good results in the GST collections of April, which relate to March 22 at 1.68 lakh crores. So all indicators show the country is on the right path, the growth path, the recovery path, the revival path. And it's now for all of us to grab the opportunities that are available across the world. I'm happy that Exim Bank conducted that study on Indian project exports. That's an area which I believe is absolutely unexplored territory. Indian project exports have not received the kind of attention probably we could have given it over last many decades. Other countries have taken a big leap forward ahead of us, despite us having very good talent in terms of skilled manpower, engineers, designers, architects, our skilled labor. We have all the ingredients to be an internationally relevant player on project exports. We can become a part of the growth story on creating new infrastructure that many countries have embarked on. It's not only us. We have, of course, a huge pipeline of nearly $1.5 trillion, which we hope to launch in the next few years. But apart from that, America is talking of building back better and investing large sums of money on infrastructure. Other parts of the world are recognizing that unless you set the fundamental infrastructure right and build upon infrastructure as the basic block, you won't be able to grow your economy beyond a stage. And I think our own effort to support and promote greater investments in infrastructure has started yielding good results. I see both the private sector and the public sector investing significantly in terms of infrastructure and also capex to build up manufacturing capabilities. Our services side, particularly the IT industry, has done us proud, particularly during COVID, when India met all its service commitments across the world without letting go for a day, for a minute, for a second. We rejigged our processes, moved into homes, transferred equipment out of problem areas, got broadband, high-speed broadband connectivity. All of this in place to be able to meet all our international commitments. And I don't know whether all of you have been able to reflect on how all these projects, which were started in 2014, 15, 16, helped India fight the COVID battle smarter and more efficiently. I mean, imagine if Digital India hadn't been launched 6 years before COVID hit the world, or 5 years before we got into this problem. Do you think we could have had service exports of a record level in a COVID year, where the first quarter saw the worst COVID wave, April to June 21. The third and fourth quarter, half of each of these, saw the third wave of Omicron. And between the second and third wave, with a large part of the economy facing turbulent times, I think it's remarkable that our international trade has achieved such high levels. We are now well on track to my ultimate target of going to $1 trillion of goods and $1 trillion of services by 2030, over the next 8 years. And all of this is only going to be possible with your support, with your active participation, with the support of organizations like Exim Bank in a much bigger way. And with bigger, may I, with your permission, Madam, add also bolder. I think the conservatism that is set into the financial world needs to go away. The Honorable Prime Minister has, on more than one occasion, been urging bankers, insurance companies, and other stakeholders from the who are very relevant to the economy to start taking some risks now. It's an integral part of business. But I'm sure Exim Bank will not let any of our exporters down when it comes to a greater degree of engagement, particularly to support project exports. I would also think that we should not necessarily focus only on projects where there's government funding or lines of credit from the government, or which are in third world or backward countries or less developed countries. My sense is if somebody gets projects in Europe and America and all of that, your risks are much lower and you can price your finances better. Your risks being lower, probably your requirement for capital can also come down with higher credit rating of projects in Europe or the US or developed countries, and possibly your ability to lend. Then you can negotiate with, I don't know whether IDA or RBI or the Finance Ministry, wherever required. You can negotiate for higher credit lines or credit limits for your work. And should there be need of capital, we can always talk to the Finance Ministry to look at more capital, should that become the last resort. But I think it could be a mix of several innovative ways. You could look at credit enhancement schemes. You could look at some kind of a backstop arrangement to support commercial banks to come in to finance project exports with some kind of a backstop arrangement or a credit enhancement where you can borrow and on-lend to banks for further giving out to industry, and banks doing the larger credit risk, keeping their spread, but you helping in the fundraising. And a lot of your financing to commercial banks may not even come into your credit risk portfolio. I mean, you give state banks some money, it may not come into your risk category. You can easily talk to RBI or IDA or whoever it is. I don't know much about where the bottlenecks of your operations are, but I'm confident we can always find a solution to all of that. Well, we are seeing services exports growing, but we need to see faster rate of growth in services exports. And that's where projects can play a significant role. They in fact also support our goods export. So if a project for a large pipeline is there, it helps us also give a preference or an opportunity for Indian suppliers to provide the material for infrastructure projects also. I think in every respect, whether it's technical capabilities, whether it's our ability to provide the necessary goods or merchandise to implement a project, whether it's our industrial capabilities in India to develop new products which may be required, the focus that we are giving on geo-textiles and technical textiles to support our infrastructure requirements or the needs of infrastructure projects, all of this holistically can help us really get some good results on project exports. I believe that we have several projects which are under our lines of credit, which you are in any case monitoring or handling. In the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen some $4 billion worth of projects which have been covered under these schemes. But I often get a feedback that there's much more potential, which we lose out for lack of adequate support with the kind of restrictions that you have on individual borrower lending or group borrower lending or country lending. I think one size fits all should not be our criteria. Also, projects which are completed, maybe they have a letter of credit or a line of credit backing it up, should go out of the limits on your engagement. I was told that, I mean, I don't recall now exactly, but I do remember in one or the other of my interactions, this issue coming up that there are many projects either completed or very, very secure with lines of credit or letter of credit, which are actually blocking limits of Exim Bank. So you may like to look at the whole thing afresh and maybe in a smaller meeting at some point, talk to, maybe we can have a joint finance, commerce and your meeting to see how we can have more ambitious goals on service exports. And if we have to go to $1 trillion, or rather 2 trillion together, I think services exports will need to really ramp up their contribution to make this dream or this vision actually happen. Of course, the government has concessional finance schemes and stuff like that, but I think more and more we move into businesses which are profitable, which are high paying, which stand on their own as business decisions, not dependent on government or government support. The chances of growth are more, and the chances of our taking our focus to developed world will also become more. I think for far too long, all of us stakeholders have only looked at Africa or only looked at Southeast Asia. I think we need to look at the developed world with a new enthusiasm or effort. Some of our good companies need to go overseas and set up operations also, so that we can capture a piece of the pie there. Maybe Exim can help by studying what the developed world wants. What are the restrictions in their government contracts? Do they need local presence? Do they need local companies only to be able to bid for such large projects, big or small, whatever? And accordingly guide our companies to meet that criteria. And possibly the Indian infrastructure companies, if they move out of the total dependence on Indian business, many of which is stuck at different stages, somewhere for finance, somewhere for contractual problems, litigation, all of that. Maybe if they diversify their portfolio and look at some contracts in other parts of the world, it may help them also in their business to do better work or get better returns on their investments. We have the ADB, World Bank and all also financing several projects, not necessarily always linked to country-specific procurement. And I think knowledge about all of the projects that are approved anywhere in the world, and particularly those where Indian companies can participate, if that knowledge can be shared with more and more of the stakeholders in India, that will also open up their eyes to the big opportunities that are available in the world. And I'm sure many of our companies, either individually or in joint venture with other companies, can collectively participate and become qualified for different levels of projects all over the world. We on our part are committed to supporting you, and any ideas that have come out in the course of today's deliberations, any impediments that relate to government or government processes, or which we can help to resolve, we'll be absolutely delighted to take that forward, to understand and get that feedback from all of you and help the project exporting sector at the macro level, but also at the micro level if there are any small or individual issues. While we are discussing free trade agreements, if you have any inputs from the project's export side, we'll be happy to get that and integrate that into our dialogue. So if there's a market access problem for our companies to bid in contracts in UK, any EU country, Canada, while we are not discussing currently any FTA with US or with other Latin American countries, if you do tell us you have problems with any part of the world, all the 200 plus countries in the world, where you think there's a potential but you're not getting market access, where you're being discriminated against, then please do let us know. We can flag it off. I have a meeting with the Italian minister tomorrow. I was looking at the issues. There were no project-related issues, no project infrastructure issues, except one that came to my attention, which was related to, I think, one of the Calcutta companies not being allowed to bid in Italian projects because they are new. And that typical problem that we have in India also, that your prior experience within the country becomes a detriment to your bidding within your own country. Today there's a case that came up to me where an infrastructure project, where one of our PSUs is saying, no, the prior experience in India is a must. Or prior experience is a must for 51% shareholding. So it's a new line that India is getting into. So effectively, no Indian can bid in that. Only foreigners can bid into that. So an Indian company is facing a similar problem in Italy. Of course, not that he's discriminated, it's that prior experience is becoming a detriment. With all the technology, with all the capabilities, he's not able to bid. So, of course, if you have issues related to India, also please flag off to DPIIT, the industry department, or to the relevant line ministry. When a CPSU or anybody is giving out contracts, or any state government also is bidding out, or there's a tender document which is discriminatory to Indian companies, or which is not giving a company with sufficient capabilities an opportunity to participate in it for a condition which is kind of very detrimental or tailor-made to foreign companies, then please flag off with DPIIT. It's their job. They have a Make in India cell there, which has to support Indian companies in all their any difficulties that they may face within the government system. Of course, if a private company chooses to eliminate Indian companies and go abroad, I can't do anything about it, but please do let my ministry or let my office know which company is discriminating against Indian companies. It'll be interesting to know and interesting to talk to those companies to figure out why they are discriminating against Indian companies. We can always help bring our companies together and support each other within the Indian context. So it's, I think, good times to come for the infrastructure creators. The world is now focusing on large investments on infrastructure. Government is committed to supporting international trade, foreign trade, exports, goods and services, and we'll be happy to work with industry, with our institutions, to help bridge any gaps that you may be finding. As the Prime Minister said, the world has great expectations from India in the 21st century. It's for us to live up to those expectations. Our technology companies are demonstrating those capabilities. They are leading from the front when it comes to our international engagement. Our farmers are today feeding the world in a big way. $50 billion of agri-exports, agri and marine exports last year. Now it's time for our engineers, our infrastructure creators, our project companies to start building the world. And I invite all of you to be a part of this journey. I invite all of you to work actively as important stakeholders of the India growth story. I believe each one of you is helping creating the foundations of a prosperous and developed India. And we really value your contribution, your effort, your support, the good work that you are doing. And I'm sure in the years to come, India will become the destination for project exporters when they are looking for growth, when they are looking for large projects, when they are looking for investments, and undoubtedly, you will become the creators not only of a new India, but of a new world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, on the occasion of this summit, the bank has come up with a couple of publications. May I request you to kindly release those publications? The first one is Project Exports from India, Tapping Potential Amid Changing Dynamics. Yes, sir, please. So the second publication that the bank has come up with is India's engagement in FTA, looking ahead. May I request you to kindly release the publication, please? May I now request our Deputy Managing Director, Mr. N. Ramesh, to kindly propose a vote of thanks. Sir.
Shri Piyush Goyal, Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs and Food and Public Distribution and Textiles, Government of India, Excellencies, distinguished experts from multilateral institutions, credit insurance agencies, respected participants from Indian project exporting companies, ladies and gentlemen. As we come to the close of today's summit on enhancing global opportunities for Indian project exporters, it gives me immense pleasure to propose the formal vote of thanks. On behalf of the Export-Import Bank of India and the participants, I express my heartfelt gratitude to Honorable Commerce and Industry Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal, for his gracious presence and inspiring keynote address. Your presence, sir, in today's summit is a source of great encouragement to all of us and bears testimony to the Government of India's commitment to the growth of project exports from the country. The action points in your keenly perceptive address today have been noted by us, and India Exim Bank will engage with stakeholders to work constructively on these points. Sir, we have a tradition of giving a certificate instead of flower bouquet. We wish to present certificate from Sankalpa Taru Foundation. This foundation, under its CSR activities, they are supporting rural livelihood and community-based and city-based plantation models. जी सर. सर आपके